result of studying entomology at Durham University, and through living in the country where we have a wonderful garden full of flowers and plants, which are always alive with buzzing with insect life. So I took myself on a beekeeping course with the Cambridgeshire Beekeepers Association and set up as a beekeeper. And most beekeepers are concerned about being stung by bees, but to date, I've only been stung 3 times. So I consider myself to be very lucky. As for honeybees, interesting first fact, there are over 20,000 species of bees worldwide, but only 7 of these are honeybees. Now, back in 2018, we were planning for our first mayoral year, first Mansion House year, and one of the lovely jobs is to come up with ideas for gifts that the Lord Mayor and Lady Mayoress might give out during the year. Being alert, this was my opportunity to include bees in our year. So in April 2019, I asked the Estlins if they would mind us putting beehives up on the roof at Mansion House, so that by the time we took up residence in November 2019, we would have had a honey harvest, and thus we could use that honey as gifts, using the Lord Mayor's honey made by the Lady Mayoress's honeybees as one of the gifts. Now, I need to mention our wonderful beekeeper, Mark Patterson, who I met on the roof at Namura in Dowgate Ward when I visited the garden up there with the beehives. He kindly agreed to become the Mansion House beekeeper. Why, you ask yourselves, am I not the beekeeper if I am fully trained? It's all about being available in the very busy bee months of April to September. This is the swarming season, and the bees need to be checked on a very regular basis to prevent them from swarming. In my role as Lady Mayoress, I recognised very early on that I would not have the time to do this. And to be honest, I had no idea what I would do if the bees did swarm and landed themselves as a huge buzzing mass at the top of a lamppost on Cheapside. Now, Mark moved 2 of his beehives onto the roof at Mansion House, and I took Lady Lindy Estlin up there for the grand opening of the hives. Of course, we had bee suits on, so you can't really tell who's who, but there is there's Mark and second beekeeper Richard and Lindy and myself. Now, the beehives have been designed to look like mini mansion houses with the bees flying in through the portico. Took ages to design these. As you can see, they've got beautiful green copper roofs and the detailing is very clever. The bees are very happy. Not that we're competitive, of course, but they do line up rather well alongside the Fortnum and Mason's beehives, not to mention Prince Charles's hives. Now, bees need plenty of flowers and plants on which to forage for as long a period as possible. And I realised that here was my next opportunity to help the bees and pollinators in the city. For a while, it had been concerning me that the stone window boxes in the front of Mansion House were filled with artificial box hedging. Very smart, low maintenance, absolutely no good for bees. Quite a few emails and meetings later, aided by Mark, we had permission to remove the box and plant and the artificial, all the artificial box, and we could then plant up bee-friendly plantings. Here we have. So you can see here the flowering window boxes. That was last year. And during the year, over the year, you'll get geranium, roseanne, muscari bulbs, hyacinths, heuchera, lavender, gora, dianthus, stachys, thrift, snow in summer, Mexican fleabane, snapdragon. But it's important to note that pollinator-friendly plantings are not always neat and tidy. In fact, quite often they're scruffy. But hopefully people now realise that this is a positive thing for biodiversity and the environment, and a small price to pay for that. Last year, Mark took off 35 pounds of honey from our rooftop hives, which he bottled up and we have been giving as gifts. When taking honey off the hives, it's important to leave enough behind for the bees to keep them going through the winter. and it's usual to leave around £30 in each hive. Last year, we invited the Lord Mayor up, very risky business, up to take the honey off the hives. And here we have him posing by the hives. In fact, you can even see he's got his peppermint green suit on. He wasn't thrilled about that. He's got his badge on because he happened to be wearing it at the time. And I told him to keep it on because it was rather funny. Anyway, there he is helping outside. And then we went inside and we got him helping to spin the honey down. That's in the Mansion House kitchens. Now, I couldn't let my top drone get away without helping out at harvest time. Now this is a little tiny video of him tasting the honey.
That is absolutely delicious. Best honey I've ever tasted.
Oh, we don't want that again. There we are. Now, here we go. I thoroughly enjoyed designing the labels and packaging for our gift. First, I sorted out these beautiful labels using Tregothnan Estate in Cornwall as designers. And then I addressed the problem of finding someone to make the little beehives, a little beehive box you can see behind, in which we gift the jars. When we lived at the Old Bailey for the year when my husband was sheriff, I became interested in prisoner rehabilitation, and I learned a lot about the many excellent charities working in this sector. So having visited a few prisons and seen the fantastic rehabilitation work going on, I thought it must be possible to find a carpentry department in one of the prisons to help with this mini beehive. Ley Hill Prison in Gloucestershire came to the rescue. Ley Hill is an open prison for 500 men, 3/5 of whom are lifers at the end of their sentences. The average stay there is 6 to 18 months. Anyway, I drove down to pick up the boxes and to meet the talented team who had made them. Here's the, obviously as I went in, but then I wasn't allowed to take any more pictures after that for obvious reasons, but it was a really uplifting experience. Now here, can you actually see me? Because I can't see myself.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, can you see my little box? Yes. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, here, this is the finished product. And I'm delighted to give this pot to the master this evening. Of course, not right this moment, but we'll organise for this to be delivered to you. And I also would like to thank the clerk very much for your help with organising tonight. We had a lovely chat earlier on, or actually last week. So we also will have the customary Mansion House mayoral spoon, which we'd like to give you for your collection. Next up, right, you might recognise this. We have to be very careful with the honey at the moment. The square mile obviously looks and feels a little different these days, nowadays. Maybe it smells different too. You may have heard that a huge cannabis farm was discovered underneath Throgmorton Street just last week. There were 826 plants, and the City of London Police said it was the first ever cannabis factory discovered in the capital's financial district. Now, this was actually underneath the property of another livery company. I couldn't possibly say which one, but it rhymes with vapours. Now, being on top of Mansion House roof, we think our bees are pretty high enough already. They're high enough already. But while we want them to be happy, we hope they haven't been affected, though it could give the honey an interesting flavour. But enough of that. I won't rehash the same jokes. Anyway, apparently in the US, cannabis honey is really taking off. Since they legalized it, the cannabis farms are springing up everywhere, and honeybees are regularly seen visiting the flowers locally. So I've no idea what it would taste like, but it is used because apparently it's very good for pain relief. So we could have a future. Now then, another aspect of my work with bees is the charitable side. For the past 6 years, I've been an ambassador of the charity Bees for Development, based in Bath. This charity works to alleviate poverty in the developing world through sustainable beekeeping.
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
See me?
Hello?
Hello.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, somebody's saying hello. Shall I continue?
Yes, you can.
Okay, good. Well, actually, I'll go back here. So I've just added this bit in this evening, actually, about Bees for Development. I spoke to them earlier today, and they are working a lot in Ghana right now. And this is incredible because it shows you the nut yield per tree with the bees, and then the nut yield without. And it's pretty remarkable to see that difference in the cashew nut yield. So obviously it's good for honey production, it's good for trade, and it's good for the community. Those are cashew nuts. I didn't know what they looked like, but it's some great work going on in Ghana right now. Oh, sorry, picture of me. So every other year, I help with the Bee Garden Party, which is hosted by Martha Carney and Bill Turnbull. And so as Lady Mayoress, I am in privileged position to be able to help various causes close to my heart. So what better than a bee banquet? This was due to take place I was going to do a bee banquet at Mansion House. It was due to take place last May, but actually, as with all other live physical fundraising events, we had to cancel it. Instead, we held the Bee Sundowner with Bill Turnbull and Martha Carney and Monty Don, which proved to be a huge success, as well as raising money for Bees for Development. And we also were able to make a donation to the Lord Mayor's appeal. Now, before I finish, I would like to mention a project here in the city that I'm supporting. It's called Pollinating London Together. This is an association, you may have heard of it, of London livery companies and the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. These liveries and the trust are looking to work together with London corporate, civic and charitable organisations, plus city workers and residents, to continue to improve the London environment. The vision of Pollinating London Together is London clothed in green, pollinator-friendly planting that provides a naturally healthier environment for pollinators and for humans in body and mind. Together with the Gardeners Livery Company and the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, we've done a couple of pollinator audits in city gardens. And our aim is to see if we can get all livery companies with gardens to participate, as well as city gardens and the open spaces team. Please spread the word. Where are we going from here? Now, it's funny how word travels. And I have to say that bees and honey have often cropped up during the year, certainly in our first mayoral year, and I hope in our second. We've been given jars of honey from Rwanda, Canada, the USA. That was delicious honey from the bees at Winfield House, from the American ambassador. We've had honey from the rooftop of Namura, Epping Forest, Hampstead Heath, and most recently West Ham Park in Newham. Now, West Ham Park is the largest of the open spaces owned and run by the Corporation of London. Remarkably, it's 77 acres of gardens, trees, playgrounds, wildflower areas, sports facilities, even a bandstand. And with the help of, they have amazing volunteers there, and with the help of their volunteers, they were able to, they were actually the only green space in Newham to be open every single day of lockdown, number one, and I'm hoping now as well, which is obviously a vital resource for all their residents. Last year, I was also given the opportunity to open the National Honey Show, which has been going for almost 100 years. The Honey Show is supported by the Wax Chandlers Company due to their use of beeswax. So I'm pleased to say there are strong city connections to bees and honey, which, as you may know, also happens to be Cockney rhyming slang for money, perhaps reflecting the idea of working hard to get a sweet reward at the end. Now, I'm happy to take any questions. There you are.
Can I just say that was wonderful.
Thank you.
Immediate past master Richard Katz.
Hello, yes, hello.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm really honoured from last year to be able to also have one of your.
Oh, good.
Can we go? Turn it round.
I'm
Which you
glad.
were so generous to let me have as a result of interrupting you somewhere else on another.
Oh, delighted.
And it's lovely. It really is lovely.
Have you tasted it yet?
I have indeed, yes. And I have the special equipment here to taste it with.
Honey spoon, lovely.
Yes.
But now I know that there could be a chance that it's involved with some hashish being. I shall taste it again with that in mind.
Yeah, that could be intriguing.
Lady Mayoress, can you hear me?
Yes.
It says Irene, but my name is Fraser.
Hello, Fraser.
You mentioned the wax people that, could you recommend somebody that I could approach to start up possibly?
Do you mean the Beekeepers Association, or do you mean the wax chandlers?
Well, the wax chandlers, would they help me, or would it be better to go to the bee association?
Yeah, you're interested in maybe becoming a beekeeper? Great. That you will have a local beekeeping association. There is the London Beekeepers Association. As I say, I'm a member of the Cambridgeshire Beekeepers Association. They're terrific organisations, and it's really good value, and it's so interesting. Even if you don't want to become a beekeeper, just to go on the beekeeping course, there's such a lot to learn, and you could go on learning forever with bees, so much. But to do that basic course and to get your first hive, and they encourage you to build your own first hive, and then you buy a nuke, which is the basic building block of bees for your hive, and they really hold your hand through that process, and you get linked up with a buddy, so that you have somebody on call who will literally be there to hold your hand as you try and you wrestle with your smoker and your hive tool.
I live in the Garden of England in Tunbridge Wells, so there should be plenty around for the bees. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there's a very active group down there, certainly. In fact, I was just hearing about a lovely program that's starting with the Kent beekeepers and the orchard owners and the prison population, because I think that they're going to try and link up and use it as a rehabilitation tool, but also to train prisoners in the art of would be pruning the orchards, and the idea is that they will then go on and have jobs, maybe once they leave, they may find jobs in that industry, but also in the beekeeping. It's very good for mental health. So yeah,
thank you very much.
Go for Kent Beekeepers Association.
Can you tell me if your hives are going to stay on the roof when you are no longer the Lady Mayoress? Are you passing them on to the next Lady Mayoress?
Very good question. I really hope they do stay. I think they will. I mean, but there have been beehives on the Mansion House before. In fact, it was in the year when Roger Gifford and Michael Baird, when they were Lord Mayors, there were bees up there, but they were looked after by some volunteers from I think from SEB Bank, Roger Gifford's bank, and then that they one year over one winter they died off, and so they didn't bring them back. And so when I was at the Old Bailey, there were bees on the roof there, and then they were taken away. These beekeepers seem to come and go a bit, and so for me it was lovely. It became a reality to have them on the Mansion House, and I'm going to work very hard on the next lot through. I think they should go and train, but and I think with what's going on with biodiversity and the green agenda, everybody recognises that it's not just a pleasant hobby. It's a vital part of our world, our environment, and so it's now taken sort of seriously on another level as well. So I'm optimistic.
Good. Yes. Glad to hear it.
May I ask a question? Do you happen to know where your bees came from? Are they English bees?
Have you been reading about the Italian bees?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, my father used to have 30 hives, And when he had Italian bees, I used to run as fast as I could down the orchard to get away from them. They're very angry bees.
Yeah, they have a reputation of being very feisty, shall we say, the Italians. My bees are not Italians. I think they're probably from the buckfast bee family, but they were chosen because they had proved themselves to be nice, calm bees, good, calm colonies. You know, it's very genetic specific, and I think one of these colonies came from the Olympic Park, where our beekeeper also keeps bees, and the other one was from a cemetery in South London. So they passed the test. They were selected to come up onto our roof, and so far they've behaved very well. We've had no mishaps, but yeah, no Italians on our roof.
What is your view about the Italian bees? I mean, 6 million baby bees, it does make me cry.
Oh, you mean the bees that are about to be, well, potentially could be destroyed?
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I know. It's dreadful, and it is a big industry, and it's got to be addressed. And I mean, it's only just come to the fore, hasn't it? I mean, it's another one of those teething problems. But it's really important it's sorted out, along with all the other teething problems that we're being faced with right now.
Baby bees, I mean, however aggressive they might become, you know, you can't kill 6 million of them.
No, I agree. It's the saddest thing when you see dead bees in a hive. I've seen a hive collapse, and it wasn't one of mine actually. It was when I was doing the course, and it was the bees had their heads. They'd actually died of starvation over the winter, and their little heads were embedded down in the cells, and they just died. I mean, you really do become quite fond of your bees. So I think that's. I mean, he's a serious commercial beekeeper, isn't he? That's a totally different scale to anything I'd go near.
How many bees in the hive?
How many bees in the hive?
Normally, I mean, sort of what?
In the winter, they go down to about 10,000, and in summer up to can be in the peak months 60,000.
Gosh.
Oh.
Lady Mayoress,
connection.
Can I ask 2 questions? How many bee colonies, are there in the square mile, and how far do your bees roam to pollinate?
Interesting. There are, I don't know is the question to the first, answer to the first question, but I know that the beekeepers are not encouraging any more to be put up. Because there are enough. And what's needed more than new colonies is actually more foraging material for the bees. So that's why the green roofs and green walls and plantings that are planted up with biodiversity in mind are really vital. And that's why it's good to have open spaces and the City of London Gardens on, and all of the and indeed, livery companies, everybody on board, because that's what we need is more of more forage material. Even Namura are doing a fantastic job up there, and they've got a lot of even little bumblebee has. They don't just look at honeybees. They've got a big moth program going on and a big bumblebee program, and they look at putting up little bumblebee houses, and they're doing a moth survey at the moment. So it's actually but when we first arrived in the Mansion House, my husband was saying, the Lady Mayoress is really keen that you all keep bees and support bees, and we need more bees. And I was going, no, don't tell them we don't need more bees. We only just got away with getting our bees on the roof. So don't need any more bees, need more. And about flying, I mean, it's difficult to know. They can fly up to 3 miles a day, 3 miles. And in terms of going up and down as well, there's only a certain height that I'll fly up and down before it becomes, in terms of energy and efficiency, not worth them doing it. So they'll fly a long way, but obviously then they're using up more energy and to get there and back. So, that's a good idea. Glass of something. And
I was going to tell you this. I don't know whether you can see this very fine Venetian style goblet.
Bit of Murano glass.
No, it's blown by a wonderful American maker called William Gudenrath, who is an amazing maker because glass in the Venetian style, and he does it on his own, which is very unusual because normally he has somebody. But this story has a connection with bees, because he says the best way to learn to put glass on the blowing iron is to use the thing that Richard showed, for twirling the honey.
Oh yes.
Is to use that, and if you can keep the honey on it consistently, that's how you learn to twirl your blowing iron.
That's a great connection. That's a really good connection.
So, there's the connection between bees and the glass sellers, or the glass.
I have to say, I was looking for one earlier and couldn't find it. You solved the problem.
I think there's an artist in the West Midlands. I think there's an artist in the West Midlands who does a lot of work around bees. About 5 or 6 years ago, there was there was a whole project about bees and as an inspiration into their work. I think Joanne Newman and a few others, but also Nancy Sutcliffe does some amazing engravings of bees on glass blocks.
Oh yes, I mean really they're such an inspirational insect, and you do find, I mean, with so many different sort of aspects to them, historically, and then in terms of, it's for Manchester. I think for Manchester the bee is their symbol, and they had after the bombing they had hundreds of bees made and put into windows. And do you remember that? And then bee sculptures all around the city. And then they actually auctioned them off at the end. And I had decided that it was going to be, for that year, that was going to be my way of supporting the charity Bees for Development. So I bought one of these bees, and they come white. And then a friend of mine who's an artist, and she's an artist and a beekeeper, and so she I don't know if you happen to go into the Mansion House, she's called Beatrice, and she's a beautiful bee on the staircase just underneath the Frans Hals painting. And my friend has painted the bee. What she's done is illustrate the pathways between insects, pollinating insects, and either their food or where they lay their eggs. She's made those relationships, and it's all, if you to use a torch, it's all, she's used is it psychedelic colors. It's so how the bees see flowers is how you see this bee if you would turn the light off and shine a UV torch at it. It's absolutely beautiful. So I mean, the art in around bees, you're right, there's so much of it, really interesting. And at the bee garden party we always have an auction, and we have a postcard competition of people painting bees, and we try and get famous people to paint bees. And actually last year we got Boris Johnson to paint a bee, and it was called Boris's bee, and he's very good at doodling. It was a very good bee, but it wasn't quite the right time for us to auction. It wasn't the right moment, so actually we've still got the Boris bee, and we were going to have it at the bee banquet last year, but actually that didn't happen. But having spoken to the bee people tonight, or earlier today, we think we're going to aim to have a bee banquet in the Mansion House in maybe October, and then we'll be able to bring our bee out again. So
this is the Nancy Sutcliffe bee.
Oh yes, yeah. Stunning. Is it gold? Is that part of it gold?
Yeah, it's got gold
yeah.
on the sort of page.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? Wow.
Thinking also, Lady Mayoress, another connection. In your presentation, you had a plaque with some flowers in it. That put the square with the flowers would be beautiful in glass.
Yes.
You had a plaque somewhere as a presentation next to a beehive.
Yes.
Say what you've done for the year or the 2 years, and had that in glass. I think that would look beautiful.
Oh, that's a lovely idea. Lovely idea. I have to say, we were given some very nice glass bees for our Christmas tree this year. Somebody here might know something about that.
Our Clark's imagination, no love of bees.
Well, I have to say, Lady Mayoress, as you've passed a pot of honey to the master as a gift, we've got something for you, which I don't know if you can see, but
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
2 little glass crystals
Oh.
made into bees. And I'm pleased to note that you've got pierced ears because they're pierced earrings.
Oh, wow. Oh, I can see now. Oh, that's amazing. Thank
And
you.
that's a little gift from us to you as a thank you.
Oh, that's really special. Thank you very, very much. Really lovely.
You've got a bee round your neck too.
Yeah, I have. I've got a bee, and I have actually got bee earrings, but they're not nearly as good as those.
Well, they'd have to be glass, wouldn't they, from the glass?
That's lovely. What a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
Another connection, if I may, with the bees and the company is that in 1975-76, the Master Stanley Matthews was a leader in the UK bee organisations, if you like. And he gave us lots of talks about it, etc. And your talk with the bees on the roof, I recall Stanley's funeral, which had one wreath only on the top of the hearse, and it was a beautiful bee with a body of about 6 foot long. It was absolutely stunning. And he was a lovely man, and we really learned quite a lot about bees, and we appreciated that. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I wonder, did he make any links with the wax chandlers? Because you know, obviously there is that maybe he was a member of their livery company as well.
Probably was, yes, and he wrote a lot of books as well, as I understand it. Yes.
Really,
lovely stuff. Yeah.
Bit of an expert.
People are very nice, aren't they?
Yes, yes, I think so. Yeah.
Lady Mayoress, has your beekeeper identified which flowers your honey is flavoured with? Because I know some of them are quite clearly identifiable.
Yes, well, he would say that our honey's got a lime tree flavour to it, and they do love the lime tree blossom, and so I mean he would definitely, and there's a little peppermint hint as well, which is possibly herbs from some you know, window boxes. He's not, unless you send it off to a laboratory, and you can do that, and you can have, you know, it you know, literally you can find out, you're given a list of everything that has been, all the flowers and plants that have been foraged on by your bees. All you can do is sort of make a guess. But what I can tell you is it's really tasty honey, and generally you'll find that about urban honey, because they have a much wider range, and there's a longer window usually for them to forage. So with all those beautiful gardens in London, it's a lot better than being stuck out here in Cambridgeshire, where we've got lots of agriculture with monocultures. So the London honey is very good, really good.
Thank you.
I can vouch for that. And now you said it has a lime flavour or relationship.
Yeah.
So that answers really my question, because it was very unusual, but lovely, of course.
Oh, good.
Can I ask one supplementary question, please, which is, you mentioned in your presentation that a beekeeper had to take action to avoid swarming. What sort of action is that? What does a beekeeper have to do?
Well,
apart from smile at the bees, of course.
Well, I mean, swarming is a natural way of, it's a natural thing, and it's a natural way of keeping the, you know, and reproduction. And there are beekeepers that are very natural about their beekeeping, and they just let their, you know, if you lived in Scotland or in, you know, really rural area and you didn't mind, you could just let your bees do their thing and take a bit of honey off them every year, and you'd be very happy. If you live in the city, particularly the City of London, you have to be careful of your neighbours and your environment when it comes to swarms. And so you can actually, you can avert a swarm. You can see when your colony has got to the point in its cycle where it wants to split off. So what the bees will do is form a new queen cell. They recognise when they've got to the point where they need to reproduce and get fresh blood in, and the old queen might be getting a bit old, and they want to sort of change it up, so they'll produce a new queen themselves. And a queen cell looks very different to a drone cell or a worker cell. It's much bigger. It looks like a little acorn hanging. They usually produce a few. So as a beekeeper, if you're keeping on top of your hive each week, you would go and look at all of the frames, and you would look to see if they are forming these acorn queen cells. And if they've capped one off, that means that there is a queen imminently about to arrive, hatch off, and then there will be a swarm. The old queen goes with half the colony, and the new queen is establishes her own colony. So what you can do is you can give your bees more space, because that's part of the problem. They need more space to make more brood, to make more honey. So you can give them more space, but you can keep destroying. I mean, they hide these cells, so it's quite difficult sometimes to find them under a swarming, sort of buzzing, swarming, massive, not swarming, but a very busy group of bees. They will hide these little acorn cells, but the idea is that you remove them. So you take them away. Yeah. And then then some beekeepers would split a colony themselves. So you can do that. I don't split, but you can split a colony and then make sure that you kind of force a swarm yourself, so that you then have a second hive with half of your bees. You take that off and you start another colony. So you control it much more if you're in an environment where you don't want to have a swarm. But there's somebody in the city who's got some hives, and my beekeeper looks after them. And no, sorry, he doesn't. He wants to know who it is because they can't locate the beehives. But every year they swarm, and every year our beekeeper has to remove swarms from this particular place, at the same area every year, and they don't know where they're coming from. But our beekeeper gets a bit cheesed off because he has to come and pay congestion charge and and he has to do it free of charge. Nobody pays them to do it. They do it, but he's taken one off the side of the Shard. He's taken one off the Holborn Bridge. They do manage. They'll often find a way round and do that swarm. But as I say, there are ways of controlling swarms.
Lady Mayoress, you mentioned about the queen might get a little bit old and you need new blood. How do you sort the problem out with the respect of the queen getting old?
Well, they will sort that out.
Oh, they will. Right.
They will sort. You don't ever have to do that. I mean, and there's people who really get into genetics and breeding queens, and queen breeding is another whole area. And if you particularly like the genetics of that queen, as we've talked about temperament earlier with the Italians, the feisty Italians, so you can breed, and you breed queens. I mean, I haven't ever gone near the idea of breeding queens. I'm just happy with my happy bees here. We have two colonies that are mine, 2 hives, and then I've got a Polish beekeeper in Cambridgeshire who asked if he could keep his bees in our meadow. So I've got 30 more hives in the garden, just in the meadow here. And he works on genetics, and he needed his colonies here to be far enough away from his other colonies in Cambridgeshire so that he could have them as a distinct genetic group, and he works with them. So I wouldn't I wouldn't go into queen rearing myself. I don't know if there's anybody else on this Zoom who is a beekeeper and has gone down that route, but I'm very happy at the moment just for having my honey every year.
Yeah, my name's Ted. I'm also Polish, and I'm a very keen, enthusiastic beekeeper. As a hobby, which I've got more into since I retired. I'm also a wax charmer.
Oh, good.
The wax charmers. I'm examiner for the BBKA exams.
Oh my goodness, well. You should have been doing this talk, not me.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to your explanation, which I think I must congratulate you. You've dealt with some very difficult questions there. I was waiting to see whether I needed to jump in and help you with the swarm control. But no, I think the splits and the giving them extra space was marvellous, was wonderful.
Oh,
but just out of interest, I was chairman of the Epping Forest Beekeepers Association, and I was the first one to put bees into West Ham Park.
Oh, really?
So your reference to that was very interesting as well. So yes, I'm a very keen beekeeper, and I specialise in breeding docile queens.
There you go, everybody. We've now got him.
So any more technical questions, I'm happy to field them. Thank you very much.
Oh, terrific. Oh, that's lovely to meet you. That's fantastic. And West Ham Park is such an impressive open space, isn't it? And they've got hundreds of trees there, which I'm sure are very popular with all the bees. And but
horse chestnuts, yeah.
Horse chestnuts. I did meet the couple, lovely couple, who are in charge of the beehives there now, and they're doing a lot of work with the schools in the community, going out and talking to the children and sort of educating people on bees and biodiversity and really reaching out rather than it just being their thing. And that was very, very tasty honey we got from there.
Yes, just out of interest, I did have some of the best tasting honey I've ever had this year. I think the last season, I actually got up to 40 hives and had 1,800 pound jars of honey.
Did you
A
really?
lot of honey to produce, and some of it was because we were so dry. It was the thickest honey, because we have to check the water content, and it has to be below 20% water to be called honey. And mine was right down to about 15.2. So
really?
It was difficult to run through the filters. It was a wonderful year, wonderful year.
Fascinating. Where do you keep your beehives?
I have 2.5 acres of a back garden in Nazing in Essex. So I'm sort of between Epping and Broxbourne.
Oh yes.
But I've got plenty of space and not many beekeepers nearby. So it's funny you were saying about the Polish beekeeper in Cambridgeshire trying to keep his bees away from other bees. Very wise if you're doing queen rearing. Yes. Please
Yes.
put him in touch with me. I'd like to meet him.
Oh, I'd love to. Can we do that, Paul? Can you link me up with Ted, and then I can link up with Peter? Peter, the beekeeper here, he doesn't believe in treating for varroa mite. I've been asked before about varroa mite, which of course you'll know all about, but he likes to breed he likes to keep his colonies that survive varroa, and if they don't, and he'll keep those colonies and then he'll split them, and he'll keep breeding and working with them. And his thoughts on are that there's no point of weakening colonies by keeping on treating them with chemicals. It's much better to work on breeding and genetics and to find bees that can beat the varroa mite. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
My thoughts are that yes, eventually the bees will develop strains that are resistant to varroa mites, but they've only been here since 1993, and it's really a short time for them to evolve. But there are wild colonies that have survived in the wild without any treatment at all. So some of those wild swarms are the ones we like to catch and breed from.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I do treat all mine at the end of the summer in September. I treat them. I do use a chemical, but I vary the types of chemical. Amitraz is the one I use at the moment, which works very, very well. But I don't touch them any other time of year for varroa. You can't treat them when you're taking honey off.
No.
When you're raising queens, really.
No, absolutely. Oh, lovely. Very nice to meet you.
36.
Lady Mayoress, I live in the West Midlands, and our factory was on a canal side, and one of our ladies who worked for us was a Worcestershire beekeeper. So she had 2 hives on the canal, so we used to charge her rent. So we used to have 2 jars of honey a year off her. And the honey was water balsam honey, and it did win awards, so it was very nice honey.
That's a lovely story. What a good way of sorting out the rent issues. That's lovely. Yes, well, that's actually how I work with Peter. I call him Peter the bee, my Polish beekeeper here. We work on honey, we trade honey, but he also tells stories. They always say never ask a beekeeper a question about bees. You could be there all night. And I certainly learned that with Peter. He's wonderful, but my goodness, he can tell a few stories.
Lady Mayoress, I know in America they brought in the African bee a while back and tried to mix it with their bees and had an awful lot of trouble because they're so much more aggressive. We were talking about the Italian bees here. I don't know if they've ever tried and hopefully not, the African bee as well. Yeah.
I think I'll hand that one to Ted.
I think brother Adam at Buckfast brought bees from all over the world, but the South African was very aggressive, and yes, you're right, they took them to, I think, Brazil to try and breed them with a very mild, non-productive bee to try and blend it, and they escaped, and they have. The Africanized bee has worked its way up, all the way up into the mid-United States of America, and there are places in South America and on some of the places where it's illegal to keep the bees within half a mile of anyone living, or schools or hospitals and things, so they can be quite aggressive. But no, I don't know of anyone that's tried to do that here.
Thank goodness.
It's very rare, that one. Thank
From
you.
what we heard, thank goodness.
Oh, fantastic.
My Lady Mayoress, I think it's time we let you go. We could keep you here all evening throwing challenging questions at you, but it wouldn't be fair. You lead a busy life. Thank you so much for making time in your busy program to come and talk to us, and for giving us such a fascinating and expert presentation. And congratulations also on achieving the sort of leading beekeeper position in the City of London.
Yeah.
Never heard of, probably, by Lady Mayoresses in the past. But it was truly fascinating, and you dealt with all the questions so efficiently, and I should apologise for letting loose on you unannounced our secret weapon.
Oh yes,
Gretel
yes.
Silsky.
I know. I'm glad I survived that one.
You passed with flying colours, I think.
Yeah, Ted, you're my new best friend.
You're welcome, Hilary. I thoroughly enjoyed it as well.
Like a sort of beekeeper's dating agency.
Hysterical.
Thank you on behalf of the Glass Sellers so much for a wonderful evening, for sparing the time, and for being such a good friend to the Glass Sellers. And I think I'm right in picking up a hint. You said you were going to send me a jar of honey.
Yes, that's right.
I can say is I hope it got lots of, what do you call it in it? Smack.
Yeah, I'll test
that
it
immensely.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the tale of the cannabis farm underneath X Livery Company in Thornton Street. I'm truly shocked. I know a couple of past masters with that company, and I will have words with them afterwards and say, what have they been doing? Breeding cannabis. But enough from me. Thank you on behalf of us all for a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you. And Paul, we'll be in touch because obviously sorting out honey and spoons.
That'll be fine. And I dare say we will all look forward to seeing you, hopefully, on the 28th of October in your lovely house.
Yes.
And we will hopefully be dialing in the Egyptian Hall.
Wonderful. Good. I look forward to seeing you all then.
If not before.
Thank you.
Lovely. Bye-bye. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. And I think we say good night to everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Didn't realise
Have a lovely evening.
Well, that was a bit different.
Oh, well done for arranging that. That was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Oh,
to the chat.
110%. Really well
Yeah.
done. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
And I'm really glad I got out a bit early. Fantastic.
It was lovely to see you, Sharon.
Can you see the daylight behind me? Look,
Yeah.
watch the dawn.
Well, we've only got a couple of months now, and we'll be seeing sunshine, hopefully.
That's true. Yes.
I was delighted by the introduction late in the stage of our secret weapon is Ted. Ted, thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, my apologies. I didn't want to say too much, especially too early on. But I'm a friend of Stephen
Pollock Hill.
Pollock Hill.
Oh, yes.
And Tony as well. But when they invited me along to this, I thought, well, I suppose I should really, out of good manners, let the master or the clerk know that I'm actually going to join in. And I forgot. And the grandchildren.
That's honest.
Made it.
It was all the better for that, and the Lady Mayoress loved meeting you.
Well, honestly, I meant what I said. She did very, very well. She did.
She did. Yeah.
She handled all the questions. So if anyone's got any questions on bees, please, come back to me. Let me know. I'm also a Waterman Lighterman as well. I'm on the court there, and hopefully be going through the chair of that company in 2 years' time, following Sir David Hugh Wotton. Passport now.
Yes, we like
Yeah,
using the Waterman's Hall.
Sorry?
We like using the Waterman's Hall.
It is lovely, and we're just advertising for a new clerk. Our clerk, Colin Middlemiss, has just decided to take early retirement at 72 or something.
Hardly early retirement. He's been there for about 100 years.
Well, we'd like to keep him for another 100, to be honest.
Yes, it's a lovely hall. It really is. I love the place.
Yes.
Got a terrible beetle there.
Terrible beetle, yes, Tony.
Yeah, well, we've got one of those as well.
Yeah, we haven't seen him for a long time, though. As well.
Well, we see ours almost every Thursday. He pitches up.
Yes, really.
And Mrs. Beadle too.
Good. Good. I'm pleased to hear it.
I'm sure he's had that same shirt on, Mark.
Just as a thought before we all do say good night, remember that next Thursday is the Michael Nathan Glass Engravers Lecture.
Yes.
You have to book for that.
Oh.
Because it's you have to book. You will not get an automatic link. The links will be coming out once you've made your application, because we're doing it as a joint venture with the Contemporary Glass Society, the Glass Society, and the Contemporary and the Glass Engravers as well. So it should be a very good and interesting evening.
Hey.
Okay.
Right. Looking forward to that.
All right. And on that note, I think we will let Sharon and John go back to bed so they can have...
No, John's in bed.
He's already in bed, is he?
He didn't get up. It's 6 a.m. here. Now he's still in bed.
So you're just on coffee time then, Sharon.
But Sharon, you'll be glad to know that this was recorded, so he can see how you performed later.
Well, and you'll be glad to know that you can watch dawn rising. You can see tomorrow happening in front of you as you watch it back.
Fascinating.
Because we're ahead. I'm going to say bye. I'm going to go for a walk on the beach. Sorry to rub it in.
We need people like you. I thought you were coming back.
God bless anyway.
Bye, Tony.
All right, everybody. We'll say good night. Enjoy the rest of the
Good night, everybody.
Bye.